Hey Goo-Gal!
Ask me anything.
Anything? Hey Goo-Gal! Hey Goo-Gal! What is a nursery rhyme?
According to Wikipedia, a nursery rhyme is a traditional poem or song for children in Britain and many other countries, but usage of the term only dates from the late 18th, early 19th century. The term Mother Goose rhymes is interchangeable with nursery rhymes.
For example, Jack and Jill. Come on, say it with me. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. I picture two little chubby German children, probably also stolen from the Hansel and Gretel story, running down an old cobbled street, passing by the Von Trapp family in the backdrop of an idealist 1938 pre-war Austrian fantasy setting. Both kids are wearing a version of a blue overall outfit, but Jill in a stereotypical dress and Jack in the matching short pants version. Both children have long socks pulled all the way up to their knees and are wearing those weirdo, must be uncomfortable as hell wooden shoes. Nope, I don't care if it's cedar or oiled or whatever, it's still wood. No support, no pliability. I cringe at the thought of the blisters. Personally, I think I'd be more likely to try making shoes from leaves or moss if I needed to. Hey Goo-Gal, what kind of wood do Dutch people use to make shoes?
The Dutch have been wearing wooden shoes or clogs or klompen since medieval times. Originally, they were made with a wooden sole and a leather top or strap tacked to the wood. Eventually, the shoes began to be made entirely from wood to protect the whole foot. Originally, alder, willow, and poplar woods were used.
Ouch. So, back to the children, running and fighting over who gets to carry the water bucket. You'd think they'd be tired by the time they'd gotten to the top of the hill, but the nanny still had to step in to break it up.
Jack, because you get to wear that cool crown you got at Jimmy's birthday party, Jill gets to fill the bucket with water this time.
Jack sticks his tongue out at his sister, then runs over to jump in the mud puddles with the other kids. Jill, not wanting to wait in the line for the well with the nanny, also runs after Jack to splash in the puddles and happily muddy up their cute little outfits. And then it happened. Not surprisingly, considering his wooden shoes had no treads at all and the mud was slippery, Jack goes and falls down the embankment. We still don't know if Jill voluntarily did a dove dive after Jack because she thought rolling down the hill would be fun, or if Jack had actually grabbed her ankle when he fell and pulled her down. Note, there are no details of just how high this hill was or how steep the embankment was or even why on earth there was a well built on the top of a hill anyway. Maybe they actually climbed up a hill to a natural spring or waterfall to get the water. Anyway, Jack's crown got broken when he fell down the hill, and he split his head open. Of course, Jack didn't care at all about the blood or the fact that his brains were starting to fall out of his head. He was more upset about his broken toy, of course. If you've never watched Forensic Files, I highly recommend it. The season 14, episode 6 Family Ties story explains how in 2004, Mr. Peter Porco was bludgeoned 16 times in the head with an axe by his son. Because of what parts of his brain were hit, Mr. Porco still got out of bed at the usual time, got dressed, and started going through his normal morning routine. Because it was his subconscious operating his body on autopilot, he couldn't see or even feel his injuries. Yes, eventually he did collapse and die from blood loss. But holy cow, our bodies and minds can do amazing things. There is actually a little-known second verse to the Jack and Jill rhyme, which goes, "Up Jack got, and home did trot, as fast as he could caper, went to bed and bound his head with vinegar and brown paper." Really? Vinegar? Wouldn't that hurt? Oh dear, don't get it in your eyes. Note, this second verse of the poem was actually probably not added until way later, like in the 1950s. There's also over 15 more unofficial verses of various levels of morbidity. Okay, now, what if instead of little Austrian Jack and Jill getting water, picture if this was 2018 and here was little Jack and Jill getting their pictures taken in front of Niagara Falls. Hey Goo-Gal, how many people fall into Niagara Falls each year?
According to Wikipedia.org, on average, between 20 and 30 people die going over the falls each year. Do you want a little more context?
Yes, please.
Statistics. An estimated 5,000 bodies were found at the foot of the falls between 1850 and 2011. On average, between 20 and 30 people die going over the falls each year.
Huh. So how many people jumped in intentionally, and how many people fell taking pictures? Hey Goo-Gal, how many people die each year taking selfies?
Here's a summary from the website nypost.com. 259 deaths over a 7-year period may not sound excessive. Selfie-related fatalities are on the rise.
Even though the caretakers of Niagara Falls have put up and maintained a 4-foot-tall stone and iron fence around the entire viewing area, even though there are signs everywhere telling people not to climb on or over the fences or walls, yes, there are still some people that prioritize the perfect vacation photo over their life. And what lesson do we need to learn from today's discussion? If someone is choosing to take a risk of doing something stupid that may hurt them or hurt someone else for that matter, it's their choice. I regularly post inspirational sticky note reminders up on my fridge or my mirror in the hopes that my subconscious mind will eventually pass the message on to the rest of me. One of my current stickies states, "You do not have the power to fix the world. You can support those who ask you for help." We can try our best to protect people from doing stupid things, but you still can't necessarily stop them. If there was a fence at the top of the hill, would it have stopped Jack from falling down?
But who's gonna pay for the fence?
Shouldn't the town be using our tax money?
Maybe we shouldn't let kids go up the hill.
Do you want to have to pay more money for water?
Then what if Jack got seriously hurt from falling down the hill and his family sued the town? What do you think? Was it Jack's fault for falling down the hill because he was horseplaying and not paying attention to how close they were to the cliff? Was it the nanny's fault because she should have been keeping a closer eye on the children and she allowed Jack to fall down the hill? Was it the town's fault for not putting up a barrier in the hopes of stopping people from falling down the hill? In 2016, I got the privilege to travel to Morocco and visit the fucking Garden of Eden. I'm not joking. It's a place called Ouzoud, about a 3-hour drive or camel ride northeast of Marrakesh. Hey Goo-Gal, can you tell me about the Cascade d'Ouzoud?
According to Wikipedia, Ouzoud Falls is the collective name for several waterfalls that empty into the El Abid River's gorge. This popular tourism destination is located near the Middle Atlas village of Tanagmilt in the province of Azalal, 150 kilometers northeast of Marrakesh, Morocco. Ouzoud means the act of grinding grain in Berber.
Like Niagara Falls to Canada, the Ouzoud waterfalls are also a major tourist attraction in Morocco. There are vendors everywhere selling things, street performers to watch. You can ride a camel, you can ride an Arabian horse, and you can get your picture taken. However, there were no fences or barriers. We were literally walking down natural rock steps to the water pool at the bottom, so there was a chance I could have slipped and fell, but I took my time and stepped carefully. Then there were kids swimming at the bottom of the falls. Yes, I'm sure there may have been a danger of someone getting swept under the water by the eddies, but it was also kind of nice to not have the view obstructed with tacky danger signs. It was honestly a little shocking standing at the top of the falls and being able to look straight down the 330-foot cliff. My friend explained that there had been a 3-year-old boy who died falling off the edge the week before. I asked him if he thought there should have been a fence or a sign to try and stop the kid from running off. He explained that Morocco, like many less developed countries, cannot necessarily afford to spend money on safety things. And maybe that 3-year-old was just stupid and would probably have died doing something else stupid at some point in his life. Huh. Fair argument. Darwin's natural selection theory applied. Growing up in a small town in the 1980s, our local park still had the notorious piece of playground equipment called a merry-go-round. This device is a large metal circle, about 10 feet in diameter, that can spin around at speeds of up to 13 feet a second. It is a useful tool to teach children about centrifugal force. Hey Goo-Gal, what is centrifugal force?
According to Wikipedia, in Newtonian mechanics, the centrifugal force is an inertial force that appears to act on all objects when viewed in a rotating frame of reference. It is directed away from an axis which is parallel to the axis of rotation and passing through the coordinate system's origin.
However, the merry-go-round also had a reputation as a death spinner, as at least one injury would occur on a regular basis. But as kids, we didn't care. Chipped tooth? Meh, it was a baby one anyway. A new one will grow in. Bloody lip from smashing your face on the metal bar? No worries, you can drink your milk at lunch through a straw. With the 21st century, and a new attitude of playground equipment should not be life-threatening to children, I think most of the awesome merry-go-rounds were sent to the scrapyard and replaced with safer plastic playing structures. According to the Canadian Public Health Association, in 2016, only 1,841 kids were reported to have gotten injured from playground equipment. Of course, most injuries probably don't result in a trip to the emergency room. In comparison, an average of 14,000 kids are injured each year playing organized sports. Hey Goo-Gal, who started insurance?
Benjamin Franklin. Here's a summary from the website Britannica.com. The first life insurance company in the American colonies was the Presbyterian Ministers Fund. By 1820, there were 17 stock life insurance companies in the state of New York alone.
Hey Goo-Gal, what is gambling?
Here's a summary from Wikipedia. Gambling is the wagering of money or something of value on an event with an uncertain outcome, with the primary intent of winning money or material goods. Gambling thus requires 3 elements to be present: consideration, risk, and a prize.
Ugh. Think about it. Insurance is technically a form of gambling. Essentially, you're betting on your life, or otherwise, you're betting on another tragic incident to happen. Therefore, the winnings go to either A, whomever the benefactor is from the insurance payout if an incident occurs that leads to an insurance payout, or B, the insurance company that you're making payments to, should no incidents ever occur that require a payout. So how did we go from children being injured to talking about insurance? Because I believe, within reason, we've let the pendulum between fun and safety swing too far in the wrong direction. Don't get me wrong. I do not have children, and thank goodness for that, because I think by nature I might be one of the overprotective helicopter parents. If my children were to inherit my klutzy DNA, they should probably wear a full bubble suit and helmet until at least the age of 18. But if I had have gotten seriously injured from flying off the merry-go-round at the park when I was a kid, it would have been my fault. I'm the kid who wanted to play on the disc of destruction. I fully acknowledged that I might puke up my lunch after spinning in circles for 2 hours, because it was fun. It was worth the risk to me, and thank you to my parents for letting me play on the merry-go-round, because that is honestly a really great childhood memory. Had Jack just done what he was told and helped his nanny get the water, had Jack not been horseplaying around the edge of the hill, had Jack not been wearing super slippery wooden shoes, had Jack been smarter? Okay, so what is the nursery rhyme Jack and Jill trying to teach us, if anything? Don't be stupid around the edges of a cliff. If you're trying to deal with rambunctious children, you may want to make them wear helmets at all times. Why the hell are you traveling uphill to get water? No way can you convince me that wooden clogs are at all comfortable. The real truth is that the rhyme Jack and Jill was supposedly written in the mid to late 1700s by who the hell knows. I like to think that maybe it was actually written by mice, like the genius rodent who supposedly composed Silent Night. It's a shame that so many amazing creative works were not honored when it mattered what the artist's name was. When people couldn't write, if their name was attached to a song, then everything was public domain. The tune of Green Sleeves, for example, otherwise stolen as the Christmas carol What Child Is This?, was supposedly composed by Henry VIII. Sure, he was musical, but I'm sorry, I'm calling bullshit on that. Henry VIII was a rich and powerful asshole king. He probably just murdered the true writer of it. There was a 2011 movie called Anonymous that claims that William Shakespeare was actually a fraud, but only given the recognition for the plays because he had the ability to write them down. In the 1700s, less than 50% of the European population was able to read and write. Therefore, these little poems and songs were created for reporters to remember news stories. The job of the minstrel was to travel town to town and announce or recite or sing the news. The rumor is that the poem Jack and Jill was written in reflection of the recent regicide of King Louis XVI of France. On January 21st, 1793, the king was beheaded with a guillotine, or, in other words, he lost his crown during the French Revolution. Hence, the word crown is being used in the poem to represent both Louis's physical head and the overall fall of the rule of the monarchy in France after his death. 8 months later, on October 16, 1793, Louis's wife, Marie Antoinette, was also beheaded. Therefore, it could be placed in the role of Jill, who fell down the hill after Jack. Hence, Marie was killed after Louis. Except Louis and Marie didn't fall down a hill. They were murdered. And now, here we are, over 200 years later, teaching our little children about politics and death through a simple poem. Most likely, these weird little writings that we have now placed under the umbrella of nursery rhymes were originally news stories sung by minstrels, which were then heard and repeated by kids. Hey Goo-Gal, do nursery rhymes have a purpose?
On the website readingrockets.org, they say, both rhyme and rhythm help kids hear the sounds and syllables in words, which helps kids learn to read.
Little kids don't care about context or analysis or comprehension or meaning. Therefore, I think it can be argued that it really doesn't matter what the story of the rhyme is now, just that it's fun to say. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. And yes, in the 1700s, water and after are supposed to have actually rhymed. I'm still not sure how. Thanks for watching! Hey Goo-Gal!
Ask me anything.